recognized symbol of excellence in sports entertainment.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 7 of That Was Extreme, right here on adfreeshows.com. I'm Josh Shernoff from So Says Shernoff on Fight, and as always, I am joined by the quintessential stud muffin and host of the 69-minute Eargasm podcast, Mr. Joel Gertner, and the leader of the BWO, and my co-host every Monday morning on the Mind of the Meanie podcast, the Blue Meanie. Gentlemen, how are you both?
I am alive again.
Meanie's back.
Yeah, I made the ultimate comeback. You know, they pronounced me dead on Wikipedia, which it's on the internet. It's the truth. But now I'm back, so it's kind of like a mini Easter. Or
to be honest, I can't even be pronounced alive on Wikipedia. So, you know,
or some people call it Meester. So
Meester.
Yeah. So it will
Easter.
be a national holiday, June 19th.
Nice.
Yes, Easter.
Joel, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I haven't been raised from the dead, but I haven't been killed to my knowledge. It's everything is great, man. I was a little bit busy in the lead up to this. I was reading an article on how to make money in the podcast business. Some people do that, and I admire them. So I was just kind of keeping my finger on the pulse of the public and my ear to the
Do you have
ground.
any tips?
Yeah, God, man, no, just for fun shits and ha-has, really. I mean, that's why we do it. We just do it to heal the world, make it a better place for you and me and the entire human race that listens to our show, which is a lot of people. I got to tell you, man, my Twitter, and it's insular and it's an echo chamber, and I'm sure it doesn't contain all the people that don't like me and have me blocked and whatever else, but you should see my Twitter, man. It lights up like a Christmas tree on the 4th of July every time we do one of these shows.
It really does. And just to go off of what you're saying there are meanies dying. So if you care enough for the living, make a better place for you and for me.
Especially for the reliving, man. Re-welcome Meanie, man. I know you've all welcomed Meanie into your life. You have beheld him. You have treasured and idolized him. You have eaten the Blue Meanie wafers that have brought him into your body. And now, once again, just let the power of Meanie compel you.
Do it.
Or he'll give you the Killer Kowalski claw.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, it's July 1st as you're watching and listening to this, perhaps. And we are actually going back to last month. We did a show dedicated to the life of New Jack. This month, we're going to do the show that we originally had planned for last month, which was going to be falling on some sort of an anniversary or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's One Night Stand from June 12th, 2005 at the Hammerstein Ballroom in New York City. This is kind of, we had said we weren't going to do any WWECW, but I don't count this WWECW. To me, this is the final ECW show. Gentlemen, what do you think? Do you agree with that?
I think this was the perfect love letter to ECW fans, the diehards, the ones who probably should have had a proper send off. I remember when we found out ECW had closed, and Joel, you and I were talking on Instant Messenger, and you're like, "How's our last show in Arkansas?" No offense to Arkansas, but we were at DCW Arena the prior week. If you're going to just pull the plug on ECW and cancel everything from there on out, why not have your last show at the arena? So for them to come back and do this One Night Stand show, to me, that was like the perfect love letter to the ECW fans.
Nothing against Arkansas. Nothing against that region of the country, nothing against smaller towns. We used to do quadruple shots in Alabama and quadruple shots in Louisiana. We've seen people swim to the building, you know what I mean? But so nothing against Arkansas itself, but just it was a new town. You know what I mean? Pine Bluff, and both of those towns, both of those buildings were completely new, and some of the roster, yours truly included, because I was a TNN guy and a TV guy. I didn't go out to all of the shows, and I think both of those were dark, and I wasn't there, and I wasn't the only one. And like Meanie said, it was kind of sad that if we knew that the end was nigh, it would have been one thing to wrap it up at the arena, but can't always get what you want. Such is life.
Well, ECW fans did get what they wanted on that night. Again, it was June 12th, 2005. 2,500 people in attendance at the Hammerstein Ballroom in New York City, a place that ECW made famous in the wrestling world. A lot of promotions have run there since, but to me, that venue is prime ECW. If it's not going to be the arena, I feel like the Hammerstein Ballroom is the place to be. To catch everybody up, ECW closed its doors, as you guys mentioned, in 2001. WWE officially bought the assets in 2003 and put out the Rise and Fall of ECW DVD in 2004 to a huge success. I'm not sure the Rise and Fall of ECW DVD was even in Vince McMahon's mind. I think that was probably a completely different department putting that together, and Vince McMahon, kind of maybe saw a commercial or two on the Titantron airing, on Raw, but I'm sure it was on his radar as soon as it became as successful as it became. That combined with a conversation with Rob Van Dam about, hey, why aren't you doing an ECW show? Why don't you do a pay-per-view with all the ECW guys? That idea is what really sparked this. Now, today, we are going to take a look back to Figure 4 Weekly, issue 521 from June 20th, 2005, with friend of A Show, Brian Alvarez. And it's better than reading from Meltzer like I did last month. God bless the people over at Ad Free Shows who edit that stuff together for Conrad. Also, shout out to Joshua Odom for helping out with getting us access to this. So we really appreciate that. So this is coming from Alvarez, talking about the weekend as a whole. Quote, of course, Shane Douglas was organizing Hardcore Homecoming, an ECW reunion show with a bunch of former ECW guys that couldn't use the ECW name for legal reasons at the former ECW arena Friday night. Then on Sunday, ECW was promoting One Night Stand, a pay-per-view from the Hammerstein Ballroom. Homecoming had the independent contractors, the TNA guys, and the original founder, Todd Gordon. WWE had the independent contractors, the WWE guys, and the man who made the company what it was, Paul Heyman. Both shows were expected to have pluses and minuses, and they did. But in the end, in both cases, the pluses far outweighed the minuses. This was magic this weekend. There was magic this weekend. I apologize. When did you both first hear about the WWE ECW event and the Shane Douglas run ECW event? Joel, let's start with you.
When it's happening at the time and it's just life and it's just that day, that week, that month, you don't necessarily make a habit of notating it or kind of committing it to memory.
Sure.
So you're talking about, I guess, 16 years ago. I think I signed on with Shane first. And I probably just heard about that from him through the grapevine. He probably just got my number and called, sent me a contract in the mail and stuff. I do have a return envelope from him, so I know that there was something sent in the mail. I signed it, and I think I was committed there first. And then I think I found out online that the ECW show was going to happen, and I believe it's possible that I was contacted by Tommy Dreamer, who was WWE Talent Relations at the time. It's possible that I contacted him, and I remember asking, "Is it okay?" When he expressed interest, I said, "Just, full disclosure, I'm already on Shane's show." And he said, "That's okay. You can work this show if you're working Shane's show." And yeah, I that's pretty much the extent of it.
Did you, Meanie, before we get to yours, Joel, did you get a feeling at when you said you saw online about the WWE show? Was there a bit of like oh crap, did I just hitch myself to the wrong? I mean, obviously you knew you were gonna have fun, right? You know you're getting back together. There's no question about that, or even questioning the quality. But let's be honest. One is a one-off event. The other might be a one-off event, but it's a WWE produced event. Obviously, that's where it's pay-per-view. It's where you want you want people to see you. Did you feel, since you were signed with Shane first, initially when the news broke online and you discovered WWE was doing an event, did you think to yourself, "Oh man," like did you hold one as like this is the real one or this is the better one at that time?
I probably did, but I also probably didn't think they were binary. Like you said, Hardcore Homecoming wasn't allowed to use the ECW name, and as such, I think that kept it on the level of being an indie show. The contracts for One Night Stand were weekend contracts for Saturday and Sunday. That means, as such, that up until at the very earliest Friday at 11:59 p.m., my life was in my own hands. So I didn't believe that they would keep or prohibit me from working what they were looking at as an indie show on Friday night, since, of course, when you work for WWE, you are an independent contractor. And when you sign a Saturday, Sunday freelance per diem weekend contract, that's what they've got you for, is Saturday and Sunday. So I was very hopeful that I could do both, and that's how it played out.
Meanie, so all the same questions to you. When did you first find out about both of the shows? Which one were you connected to first? And I guess that maybe will answer depend on whether or not we need to ask that other question. But what? How'd you find out about this?
I found out about the WWE one on I believe Monday Night Raw. Like when they first start running, there was inklings about it coming out through the websites and stuff like that, and you're sitting there like, I hope they remember me. And then like there's the initial announcements and commercials, but then I heard about the Hardcore Homecoming show, which was also attached to Jeremy Borash,
Right.
who was with TNA and now with WWE. Jeremy, a great guy. I got involved first with Hardcore Homecoming. I had been friends with Jeremy Borash for years. Jeremy Borash used to do a radio show out of Minnesota. He would do a radio show with the legendary voice of the AWA, Mick Karch. And Bob Ryder would be on that show as well. So I had that connection. So they got to me first just because me and Jeremy were buds anyway. He would come to Philly, we would hang out and go see our buddies in the band Bonehead and stuff like that. So I was already on a certain wavelength with Jeremy. So that was a no-brainer to be like, yeah, sure. A reunion in the arena. Okay. And then as time went on, like any big announcement, people always go, "Hey, are you on that One Night Stand?" And you're like, "I don't know," because and people ask out of the best intentions because they want to be happy, excited for you. But meanwhile, you haven't heard anything, and you don't want to feel like you don't want people to think that you're lying to them and going, "Oh well," or they think I'm kayfabing them. Oh, you can really tell me, No, I haven't been contacted. So when it came to One Night Stand, I was contacted maybe 2 weeks out, And I was contacted by Tommy Dreamer, and it's like, hey man, thanks for having me. He's like, yeah, we've been trying to get in touch with you. We just didn't have a number on you. So that was kind of a relief because I didn't want to feel like, like a afterthought, no, we were trying to get in touch with you. We just couldn't get in touch with you. But yeah, the cool thing about, that whole weekend was amazing. And the cool thing about Hardcore Homecoming is at that time, Jeremy Borash was recording the documentary Forever Hardcore, which was pretty much which is a great companion piece to the rise and fall of ECW. You can put those two movies together, and I think somebody actually I think it got taken down, but somebody did like a mega mix. They took both those documentaries and spliced them together in chronological order, which is pretty cool. I might have it somewhere. I might have downloaded it, but yeah, there's the trilogy of ECW documentaries: Rise and Fall ECW, Forever Hardcore, and Bob Bar City. So the night before Hardcore Homecoming in Philly, I went down to the arena, which they already had the ring set up. Shane was there, Borash was there, and they interviewed me for my segment for Forever Hardcore the night before Hardcore Homecoming at the ECW arena, which was pretty cool. But as far as limitations, there was, I told, Tommy knew, hey, I'm on this other show too. He's like, yeah, that's cool, Meanie. And and there was never any quandary or problems. I'm just trying to think of a smart word.
Can I ask you though, Meanie?
Sure.
Can I ask you but like what I had asked Joel? Obviously, so I'm not really familiar with which one was announced first as far as the date. Do you know? Did Shane piggyback, or did WWE see what Shane was doing and take that weekend? Because it seems more likely that Shane piggybacked.
I have the feeling that Shane was piggybacking, much like how a lot of promotions piggyback off WrestleMania.
Sure.
Wherever WrestleMania is running, that's going to be like the Wrestling Woodstock that weekend.
Right.
So this was kind of along those lines. A lot of people don't know, like there was the Hardcore Homecoming show, and then the next night there's another show at the arena. I forget which promotion it was. Might have been Chikara or something like that. So that building was booked out for, a couple days in a row. But I definitely think One Night Stand was announced first. Hardcore Homecoming was piggybacking off One Night Stand, but Hardcore Homecoming was the show that got me first. So, yeah.
So Brian Alvarez continues here. Hardcore Homecoming took place on June 11th in Philadelphia, PA, at the Viking Hall, the tiny little bingo hall, also known as the ECW Arena. So not at all condescending there.
Nah.
I'm looking through that, and what I'm seeing is he's saying it took place on the 11th. So I'm reading off of his things there. He's talking about them being 2 days, one the day after the other. Is he wrong in his reporting, or?
He is wrong.
Okay.
Hardcore Homecoming was Friday night, and One Night Stand was Sunday. And I know that because I was injured on the Hardcore Homecoming show. And I spent all day the next day, that Saturday, resting. I twisted my ankle on the Hardcore Homecoming show. I got busted open hard way by Sandman. I had to get 8 staples into the back of my head, which I'm sure will come up again later on in this episode. But also, I did a series of moonsaults because I was so excited. I kept overshooting Sandman and kept having me go back up. And one of those meanie salts, I twisted my ankle, and my ankle swelled up, blew up. So I couldn't walk on it. So I spent all day that Saturday with my foot up, like please heal, because I didn't know what I was doing on One Night Stand.
They come, they go, yeah, Meanie, we need you to do a Broadway.
Yeah,
and you're like, oh shit.
You do a run and I could do a hobble in. You know?
Well, yeah, and we're going to talk about that in a moment, that match. But I looked it up. It actually took place on June 10th in that tiny little bingo hall. Also known as the ECW Arena. It opened with Todd Gordon coming out and getting an enormous reaction despite being fired from the company for attempting to raid a bunch of wrestlers and take them with him to WCW back in the day. His mic died and the fans chanted, "You fucked up," apparently at the mic. They did a skit with Joey Styles, Joel Gertner, who did one of his classic lewd intros and was still wearing his neck brace from 4 years ago, and Don Callis, reprising, it says reprising here, reprising his role as Cyrus. Crowd chanted, "Fuck you, Cyrus." Clearly, this was not a show for youngsters. Anyway, Gertner and Callis got into a cat fight, and Joey at first let them go out it, then finally pulled Gertner off. Styles was over huge, and they were loud "welcome back" chants. So condescension and typos aside, he is talking about your role there. So this episode is about One Night Stand, so we won't do a deep dive in to Hardcore Homecoming, but I did want to mention Joel's role there, as well as the second match of the night. But first, Joel, what can you tell us about that experience, about being out there, opening up the show? Really, you mentioned not being there at the final ECW show. Now you have the opportunity to really open this weekend. What were you feeling? What were the emotions? And how did it feel to get into that cat fight with the proverbial invisible hand, if you will?
It felt great. It was, I didn't take it for granted. I understood and appreciated, my position to kind of kick things off. It was not dissimilar to the way we used to kick off TNN tapings. It was kind of the same. So it was kind of like going back in time and, a high school reunion of sorts, and a lot of fun, and got into it verbally and got into it physically with Cyrus. And I think it was just what the doctor ordered.
The second match of the night was Tracy Smothers facing the Blue Meanie. Meanie, we've talked about many times over at Mind of the Meanie. Not an ad, by the way, just mentioning in conversation. That does remind me, though, ProWrestlingTees.com/that was extreme. There's a t-shirt that says "not an ad."
Which is also
also something I just wanted to bring up.
I want people to understand that every time you bring up something that's informational, like when you tell them that something exists, it's out there, it's tied to something else, but when you don't kind of coerce them to buy, when you don't list any prices, when you don't, it's a bargain at twice the price, whatever. If you do it, it supports us. It's a great way to pay us for our time. And it's, when you don't go into all those levels.
You didn't hear me mention 1999.
No, and it's not an ad when you do it that way. That's the best part. It's not an ad. That's as the heel says in Shawshank towards the end. That's the tastiest part. It's not a fucking ad. And God bless you for your service, and I thank you for your sacrifice.
From Alvarez, Smothers came out with J.T. Smith, who was once a member of the FBI, before Johnny Stamboli. They did a dance contest midway through, then Tracy attacked him, and the match continued. Apparently, the dance contest was the highlight. You have to, if I can pause, I don't mean to just keep ragging on him, but if I can pause for a second. Apparently, the dance contest was the highlight. In reading everything that Alvarez, he wasn't there.
Right.
So his reporting, so take it.
I've seen Alvarez wrestle, so.
Yeah.
I believe Alvarez. I love Alvarez. Now, listen, not me ragging on Alvarez, just me being a comedian type. Just me being not a comedian type, which means I'm allowed to be not as funny as your garden variety comedian. As such, here goes. Alvarez probably on that Friday night was in the Tillamook, Oregon area, working a venue that was much more tiny and cozy than our little bingo hall, and that prohibited him from being there that night. Nothing against Alvarez, who is a wonderful journalist in his own right.
Smothers busted out every old school comedy heel trick in the book, including taking a slam from the referee. Meanie missed a moonsault and got pinned after a chain shot behind the referee's back. Guess this wasn't, quote, ECW rules. Smothers, who won, left first so the crowd could give Meanie, the loser, a big ovation. So, Meanie, tell us a little bit about, I was mentioning before that we talked on Mine of the Meanie, how much you love Tracy Smothers. What was this experience like for you, getting that opportunity to work with him again at the ECW arena?
Oh, dude, like I was saying, Tracy Smothers, unsung hero in ECW, helped all the young guys and gave of himself without thinking twice, to be in there and have another match with Tracy Smothers at the arena and relive some of our spots that we have done before in the past. The referee spot which he speaks of is the spot we did at WrestlePalooza 98, where John Finnegan actually, who big enough to be a wrestler, gave Tracy a slam at WrestlePalooza 98, and we did all these spots. And anytime I did a show after that, anybody I worked with wanted to relive that spot and do that spot with me. But, so to get to do it again with Tracy at Hardcore Homecoming was awesome. And that crowd, that building, that opponent, that referee, it was very cool. Now, I will say, like, I had been working that building up until that point because I was running shows I was co-promoting shows for a promotion called 3PW. We ran in that building, but we didn't draw as well as this Hardcore Homecoming show. So it was nice to be in front of a healthy attendance at the ECW arena.
You weren't finished for the night, though. You were back out in the semi-main event, the sixth match, which was Raven defeating the Sandman. Sandman did his usual entrance, and the crowd sang along. Raven came out with Blue Meanie, and this is true, the Musketeer. Oh, yes. Remember that guy? Raven said he was such a huge star that Sandman would have to go through the Musketeer first. This is the sort of comedy that could only work in pro wrestling. Raven eventually attacked him, and the match started. Fans chanted Johnny Polo. Sandman did all his usual Sandman spots, including the tilt-a-whirl Terry Funk ladder deal. He actually put Raven through a table with a moonsault, but Meanie broke it up and then hit 3 moonsaults of his own, losing his trousers on the second and third one. Don E. Allen tried to run in, but Mikey Whipwreck made the save. Whipwreck wanted to toast Sandman, but turned on him instead and hit the whippersnapper. Then Raven pinned him for the win, your basic ECW semi-main event match. So let's talk some memories from that. Did you lose your, quote, trousers on the second and third? We know you injured your ankle. And again, tell us, why did you do 3 mini salts?
Well, as I was saying, I was very excited to be there. I should have known something would have went wrong, because the match with me and Tracy went so well that I came out unscathed. That getting involved with Raven and Sandman, something would happen, and something did. I want to say it was either a ladder or a chair shot, and busted me open. And no, I didn't lose my trousers. So keep your fantasy out of that one, please. But
So it
I
just
did
didn't happen. Just didn't.
No, I have photographic evidence of me hitting all 3 moonsaults, and that didn't happen. I overshot just because pure adrenaline.
Sure.
And I had Sandman where I usually put him, and it would have been fine to hit the one, but Raven wanted me to hit it again. He go, Meanie, do it again, because that's Raven. That's so Raven. So I did the 3 moonsaults, meanie salts, and busted my ankle on one of them. I have a pretty sweet 8x10 I made out of one of them, a George Tejanus original, photographer extraordinaire for ECW. But yeah, just it was cool. And then I got busted open, and another really cool photo came out of that of me looking like a zombie because I got busted open in the back of my head, and the blood just poured down the side of my face, and my makeup's all runny, and I'm just looking at the camera, and I look like something out of a zombie movie, which is pretty cool. I got a pretty cool 8x10 out of that. I'm sure just as many people bought that 8x10 as people have seen Brian Alvarez wrestle. So, just yeah.
High res, baby. It's always good to have high res images. Promoters always be asking you for them high res.
300 DPI. Yeah, 600 DPI.
Yeah, never.
Just more DPI than no.
All right, so the reason why everyone's here.
And we have to mention that show because it is part of that weekend, and it does tie into.
It absolutely does, especially to you. I was going to say, especially to you, Meanie.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that was a nice little appetizer. But here's the main course.
Yes,
to quote Alvarez, the WWE promoted ECW One Night Stand pay-per-view aired Sunday night from the Hammerstein Ballroom in New York. The show opened with the ECW theme, and this was already the greatest pay-per-view of 2005. Joey Styles was introduced, and the crowd went insane. He looked like he was about to cry, then got a huge pop by saying his trademark, "Oh my God." He welcomed everyone to the show, then introduced his broadcast partner for the evening, Mick Foley. What did you guys think? Pause for a second there because it looks like Joel's coming back in. Hey, you're back.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, like King Boomer, I'll touch. I don't know if it's a nerve. I'll touch my ear pod, and when I touch it, it's as if I think that's in the techno
it's
realm.
Like
I think that's your way of telling the techno. See, I've had the vaccine. I got both shots, so now I'm microchipped. So now when I touch this plastic thing on my ear, it's like I want to fuck off right now, and I don't want anybody else on the call to see me, hear me. I've only touched this thing in my ear because I'm tapping out and I don't want to do the podcast anymore. But actually, when I touch my ear, it's not that at all. It's a nerve. It's like, hey, it's like back in the day when you didn't wear a plastic pod, you could just kind of touch your ear, and it was kind of it was seen a lot less. Anyway, so that's the story there. So I'm sorry I missed you guys for the last couple minutes. I think it happened. The reason I touched my ear too is because you can't tell, but when I look straight ahead, whenever I'm looking like this, it's because I'm watching Press Your Luck on VOD, and it was at a moment, believe it or not, when somebody just monetized for $111,000, and I don't know if it was because I was getting excited on their behalf or so I don't know. So what's that? So who was it? I'm jealous. So I touched my ear, and that was the beginning of the downfall of Inigo Muffin Toya. Can you see that's what it says on?
Yes.
I thought you were doing the Carol Burnett and just saying.
I was doing the old Carol Burnett. My show was canceled in the 80s. I was doing the old thing, and I touched my ear, and it's because I'm a hack, man. It's just one of these days I'll figure it out, though.
Should I be cutting any of this out, or
why would you cut this out? No, this is where the money is, dude. Yeah, just let the people see the inside baseball of it all. You know what I mean? The warts and all, the nuts and bolts. This is what people want to see. They want to see a little bit of
the nuts.
That's it, man. They want to see a little bit of salt. You know what I mean? It can't be peaches and cream all the time. You know what I mean? But
so Mick Foley was doing the commentary along with Joey Styles. Do you guys have any idea whose call that was? Because I think that was, everybody loves Mick. Obviously, Mick, huge history in ECW, appropriate if you're going to have somebody there. And I want to say Mick may have even been doing color commentary at the time on SmackDown. I might be off on the dates there, but everybody knows Joey Styles, for the most part, for the bulk of ECW, he was doing that solo, or he was doing that with somebody like a Cyrus, like a Joel Gertner, if you're familiar with that guy.
I have no idea who that is.
So, and clearly they didn't either, because they chose Mick Foley. So, any idea who came up with that? Was that to appease anybody?
In my mind, that was them just finding a spot to have a member of the original ECW on the show. Kind of like how at WrestleMania, they tried to get everybody on their WrestleMania card by having a battle royal or this, that, and the other thing. At this point, they were thinking this is a one-off show. Let's get in as many of the ECW originals as we could. And what better way to have Mick come in and maybe not be physical on the show, but he could have a presence on the show by maybe doing play-by-play. That's not what I know. It's just a guess.
Well, the show opens with the exact same opening as they had on the Nashville network, TNN.
A very demonic opening.
Yes. So let's get started here. This is all directly from Alvarez. Match 1, Lance Storm versus Lionheart Chris Jericho. Storm, who came out with Dawn Marie, looked exactly the same physically. You could tell he hasn't been working a full schedule, but his wrestling was fine. They did a very basic chain wrestling sequence early, and the crowd went insane. Then they chanted, "She's a crack whore." Well, she's pregnant, so I should hope she's given up that habit. Storm got the heat, and the crowd chanted, "Fuck him up, Lance Storm, fuck him up." Some hard chops and small building. They were loud. Why isn't Lance Storm wrestling regularly? Alvarez's friend Craig asked. Well, I said he retired. All right, that's enough from you, Craig. So anyway, it was a good match. The crowd was unreal. They chanted F John Cena. Jericho put on the Lion Tamer, but Dawn Marie took the ref. Okay. Dawn Marie took the ref. Justin Credible and Jason hit the ring, and Justin killed Chris Jericho with a cane shot to the face. Oh my God. And that was from me, not Joey Styles. Anyway, so that was a good match. Guys, what do you remember from that match? Were you watching it backstage?
I don't believe I watched this in person, but I did watch it. And from having watched it post-event, I was excited for that match. Being the wrestling historian or history buff that I am, knowing that they were the thrill seekers in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, knowing their lineage together and how they kind of broke into the United States together, as a really good tag team. It was cool to watch them face off one-on-one. And again, they got everybody involved with between Dawn Marie and Justin Credible. And I don't think he caned him in the face. I believe it was more at the top of the crown of the head. But I thought
Alvarez said in the face, so it was definitely in the face.
Oh, well, then.
Yeah, it's written here.
Yeah.
It's right. It's part of. It's midway through this run-on sentence.
Yeah, not written very well, but it's written.
No. He gave the match 3 stars, though. But no, I loved how Chris Jericho came out in the old Lionheart gear. I thought that was great. Something that I actually thought was missing from other aspects of the show. We'll talk about that in a minute. But the next thing that we get to is Pitbull, Gary Wolf introducing a segment honoring the wrestlers from ECW who had passed. Which was a classy move. Something that also happened at Hardcore Homecoming as well.
Yes.
Match 2 saw Tajiri versus Little Guido versus Super Crazy. And you mentioned the Andre the Giant Battle Royals at WrestleMania. Well, he writes here, half of ECW was right out here for this match, including Tony Mamaluke, JT Smith, Tracy Smothers, Mikey Whipwreck, and Sinister Minister. That's something that I think was neat for a show like this, to be able to, as you mentioned earlier, find a place for everybody. The match was pretty much what you would expect. Super Crazy went up to the balcony and the entire crowd chanted, "Holy shit." No one could figure out why he was chanting that. And then he did a sweet moonsault off the balcony and took out the FBI. I will say, if none of you could figure out why they were chanting that, maybe you didn't watch ECW or Super Crazy's time there, or I'm pretty sure the opening montage of the show.
Right.
So yeah, great match. He did mention here, they chanted Super Crazy. They botched a spot, and I figured only myself and 8 or 9 other workers would have noticed it. But I clearly had way too high an opinion of myself because the entire crowd chanted, "You fucked up." Crazy then hit a hard, all caps, power bomb and a moonsault for the pin. Also too short, 2 3/4 stars. I guess we'll move on from that match unless either of you have anything you want to contribute to that.
Well, like I said, it was great to see all incarnations of the FBI get spotlighted. They had little Guido, they had big Guido, and all that good stuff. And one thing about ECW was our fast paced cruiserweight style wrestling, which a lot of those guys got signed, the WCW based off of what they did in ECW, and stuff like that. So the showcase that one more time. Again, this was supposed to be a one-off show. And we're highlighting, some of the best matchups from ECW. So to have that on there was really cool.
He does, Alvarez makes a point to say that 2 matches into the show and it feels like an ECW pay-per-view, not a WWE promoted event. That is a very, very good thing.
That's the point.
I agree completely. And anybody who lived through WWECW on the Sci-Fi Network knows that it very easily can go another way. So,
and to make a point to that point, and I'm sure Joel remembers this, leading up to, before the show, we were at the arena, we're at the Hammerstein, and there's a meeting called before the show. And all the boys came up to ringside, sat in the seats, and Johnny Ace, Vince McMahon, and Paul Heyman and Tommy Dreamer were there. And Vince McMahon said that the goal of the show is to have as an authentic ECW show as possible. That Paul and Tommy were in charge. And Vince made it a point, we were going to have an ECW show. So the fact that he said that and it came across, it's because Vince made it a point. This is going to be an ECW show.
I think I remember tuning in as a fan and seeing the ropes and the turnbuckle pads not looking like WWE ropes and turnbuckle pads. Something that can't be said for the 2006 edition of One Night Stand. And that to me, in 2006 was like, I looked at that and said, oh no. This is not in a good direction.
And to add to that point, they did an ECW show at the ECW arena, WWE ECW, after this. And it was so weird. It was an ECW ring in the ECW arena, but it just didn't feel right. The seats were set up properly. It just everything looked right. But right before the show started, they ran their pre-recorded WWE disclaimer. This is a WWE event, blah, 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 and people booed the pre-recorded announcement. It was insane. So
they don't care who the parent company is. Just make it what it's supposed to be,
Yeah, this is a WWE proprietary event, blah, 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 and whatever the disclaimer was. And you bringing up the, seeing how WWE ECW had the WWF turnbuckle gimmicks, hearing that announcement before an ECW show at an ECW arena, just brought it back, that memory.
Yeah. Next up, an ECW history video package aired. Alvarez says, this was great. I did notice one thing. Virtually everyone in ECW aged 30 years in approximately 10.
That's not fair.
Yeah, it's not, well. Listen, not everybody can
And
continue
what
to look like a 12-year-old boy.
it was
Well
5,
into their
right?
40s and 50s. What?
And it was 5. It was only 5 years, right?
Yeah, it was only. I think it was like 4 years.
Yeah, 4 years. So
If yeah. Anyway, the next matchup was Rey Mysterio versus Psychosis in an Extreme Lucha match. This is one of the things I want to point out. Rey Mysterio wore his baggy pants that he was doing in 2006 at One Night Stand. He returned to his old school look. I bet he showed up that day and saw Chris Jericho and said, "Son of a bitch." But we'll skip past the part where Alvarez. What's that?
get me to the seamstress.
Yeah, we're gonna skip the part though where Alvarez refers to Psychosis's mask as being fat, spelled PHAT. But yeah, they had a really good match. Psychosis took the mask off. He came to the ring with it, took the mask off.
But by the way,
chanted,
real quick,
yes.
using the term fat, PHAT, has aged 30 years in the last 5 years.
Oh man, yeah,
that's good math. Yeah,
that was it was a word that I was not expecting to see by anything written after 1993. But regardless,
Dope.
it's there.
I love you, Joe.
So anyway, the fans chanted, "Put your mask on." They botched a spot early, and the fans gave them hell. The one thing about ECW I hate the most, he says. So, you know, the smart fans. I guess, look, not everyone in the audience there could be a, quote, worker. Then they booed when Psychosis put on a sleeper hold. Foley said the audience had some very obvious likes and dislikes, which is why he didn't bring Mr. Sacco. They also... Ray was draped over the guardrail. Psychosis came off the top with a guillotine leg drop, to which Alvarez says, quote, that was the stupidest thing of the night so far, and that includes the moonsault off the balcony.
This airs on the 1st. We are pre-taping. So,
Yes.
But this is, I want to take a break. I hope it's not disrespect to anybody that we're talking about that was on the shows, but I want to take a quick break so as not to show disrespect. Again, this is pre-taped, but I just saw something come through on my messenger, and Meanie, this is from a mutual friend of ours, and I'm not sure if you have an eye on your cell phone at the moment, but I just received word, and hopefully it's not true, but Super Genie, Melissa Coates, Sabu's wife, has apparently passed on.
Oh my God.
So I wanted to take a quick moment to, she was super cool. She was always very, very pleasant to me. Came into wrestling from the bodybuilding world and did her best to adapt to the pro wrestling way of life as somebody who made it in later than a lot of us, went through a lot of developmental and paid her dues, and Sabu's wife, and just unfortunately lost her leg, I believe last year or 2 years ago during pandemic, and so I don't know any details, but I just saw that come through right now, and I wasn't sure, but I felt like it might be the right thing. You know, when in doubt, I thought maybe it would be the right thing to acknowledge it, and again, hopefully it's not true. But in the event that it is, our thoughts and prayers with her family and friends and with Sabu at this time.
Yeah, Sabu, you know, is a brother to me. I owe my career to Sabu, even though he denies it. And Super Genie, you know, I've always respected her. I've met her on a show in Canada, independent show in Canada. Such a sweetheart, super kind, super nice. Throughout the years, we kept running into each other, and what she did for Sabu to keep Sabu in the straight and narrow means the world to me. She Sabu's always going to be a little bit crazy, but she kind of tamed him down. She looked after him. Super Genie was a really good bright spot in Sabu's life. And unfortunately, I hate finding out that someone I really like and respect, passes away, like this. And, so young. So I don't know the details. I don't want to speculate. I don't even know. I don't know. I know she had health problems. Unfortunately, she lost her leg, but my thoughts go out to her, and my thoughts go out to Sabu.
She just turned 49 years old on June 18th.
Yeah.
I had the pleasure of meeting her at a show a couple years ago that I was doing commentary on. Won't suggest to have known her as nothing more than a hello and a handshake. But yeah, just to, Meanie, this is the second time you and I have been on the air together.
Yeah.
And learn something like this. So yeah, I second what you guys said. Our thoughts and prayers are with with Sabu and with her family. And Joel, that wasn't inappropriate at all to interrupt for that. I think in a way, it's a good thing you found out now as opposed to after we were on the air, because this does give us the opportunity for the July 1st show to be able to have that chance to show that respect and to honor her.
Yeah, nothing but respect.
Are you guys okay to continue going on with this, or
I'm good.
There's there's obviously no good transition to get back into talking about a wrestling match, but we will do it anyway. Rey Mysterio in this match hit a 619 and everyone booed, and then chanted "You sold out," which was funny. I think that was the crowd just enjoying themselves.
The crowd was just being ironic, having fun, and the fun police here are just breaking balls. Going, oh my God! They disrespect. That's fuck you.
He did write, "I couldn't write comedy this good," and I don't think anyone's gonna argue with him on that.
We agree on something.
Yeah. So after that match, the ECW guys led by Angle. So that's definitely not the ECW guys. The WWE guys. Man, I really, I thought after last month,
week to stop sniffing glue.
Yeah. This is, you know what? Hey, this is not an ad. This is certainly not an ad for the for Figure 4 Weekly. We appreciate it.
Figure 4 needs to figure the fuck out what they're fucking trying to say.
Hey, and listen, you know what? I appreciate the fact that he did this, that he wrote this.
You have to do a figure 8 to figure out what the fuck he's talking about.
Look, Alvarez, much like Meltzer, them writing this, no matter how terrible the writing is what allows us the opportunity to go back and review this without having to sign on to the frickin' Peacock network and watch it ourselves. But Angle led the WWE guys, flashing their tickets, led them into their seats there up in the balcony. Someone held up a Kane Bischoff sign, and then fans chanted a number of things, including "fuck you SmackDown" and "you suck dick." Roadkill was cutting a promo, quote, "well, whatever it is he does," and they almost immediately cut back to the WWE guys. Well, in this instance, it was probably for the better. And he's really just editorializing here.
Could you imagine if we went heel on Alvarez just for the shits of it? Just for, like, he's devoted his life to reporting on professional wrestling quite poorly. And beyond all that, like, any of these guys that have beat Alvarez, like, who'd they ever beat? You know what I mean? And, like, you could kind of, like, imagine, though, if you just kind of kept layering and snowballing and really go in and just kind of heel on Alvarez and just, Just imagine if, you know what I mean? Not that I would ever do that, you know, because he's obviously, a gentleman, a king among men, a taxpayer, a role model, a model citizen,
Alvarez continues. Guess who came out? Joel Gertner.
I have no idea who that motherfucker is, honestly. And I don't like him. And if I knew who he was, I wouldn't tell you.
So here comes the, I guess, 16-year early retort to everything you just said.
Let's do it.
Joel Gertner still in his neck brace. He did his promo in the balcony right by the WWE guys. This was a mistake. Angle grabbed his mic. Then JBL shoved him down and booted the piss out of him hard. All caps. Joel, I'm going to stop it right there. First of all, how hard was it? Was this an HARD? Was this, I mean, he's saying all caps. And how much piss was booted out of you by JBL?
Okay, so number one, he would have booted the poop out of me because he kicked me in the hind end. He kicked me in the rear quarters, so he wouldn't
unless
have booted.
He hit you so hard that it sent it right back up.
He could have hit me hard enough that I didn't know whether to urinate, defecate, or ejaculate, but he didn't hit me quite that hard. As a matter of fact, he used an old school wrestling strategy called working, where he put all of his momentum and thrust and theater into the pre-delivery of the kick, and then did some people in the worked karate world refer to as the pulling of a punch, where when he actually made contact with my derriere, there was nothing much to feel. And believe me, with the amount of adrenaline that I had running through me, he could have stuck a Ruger up my ass and it wouldn't have made much of a difference. But anyway, he delivers his foot and it looks like it's a cannonball, but really it feels like a pillow fight. Now, I've got so much piss and vinegar in me, and I know this might be, and wound up being, the only time I was ever a performer on WWF television. So I sell this thing by, and it's not picked up by the cameras, but there's a staircase right where he's kicked me, and I proceed to roll, again, not picked up by the cameras, not part of my payday. I proceed to roll down the steps and pretend like I am so currently deceased that I would need to be resurrected on my Wikipedia.
So after the piss was worked out of you, Angle then cut a promo saying ECW fans were the lowest form of scum walking the earth. They yelled back, "You suck dick." And Angle responds, "Your mother taught me how," which was a pretty great off the top of his head. And for a guy who was out there talking crap about ECW, you know, deep down he was enjoying that moment, and knew that he was popping people with that.
Angles.
He said the last time he was at an ECW show, he walked out because it sucked. He said tonight SmackDown was going to make sure every ECW wrestler who stepped in the ring would get his ass kicked. So kiss my ass. Alvarez says, "Holy shit, this was an awesome promo." And Joel signed off again. JBL continued. Joel will be back after his technical difficulties. I think he needs to take a deep breath after some of that. JBL said Madison Square Garden was a block away, and if you put his name on the marquee, it would sell out. ECW, meanwhile, couldn't sell out a bingo hall, apparently. He buried the fans and the internet, and they chanted, "Shut the fuck up." This is the greatest show ever, Alvarez says. Anyway, he was interrupted by Rob Van Dam and Bill Alfonso. The fans chanted RVD. Now let's talk about this just for a minute. Rob Van Dam, who had the idea to do this, Meanie, and Joel, whenever you tune back in, Rob Van Dam, who had the idea to do this, ended up injured and having to have surgery, I believe, on his knee or thereabouts. But came out and cut an impassioned promo. The promo is featured, not in its entirety, but somewhat is featured on the new Rob Van Dam Icons show over on Peacock or WWE Network if you're outside the U.S., if you're that lucky to not have to deal with Peacock. And you had the opportunity to watch that with Rob Van Dam at the ECW Arena recently.
Yes, I did. Rob was kind enough to invite myself, Sandman, Bel Alfonso, all out to the ECW Arena to watch the debut of his WWE Icons documentary. And it was so cool to actually sit there and watch it with him and with fans in the ECW Arena. And the sad thing about it is, Rob put this whole deal together, and he couldn't get a chance to enjoy the fruit of his idea.
Yeah, and he mentioned that it sucked more than having to miss overseas tours, missing Booker T's wedding, and more than missing WrestleMania. But suddenly out came Rhino, who, quote, gored the shit out of him. He was stomping on him and tearing the knee brace off when the lights went out, and who should appear in the ring but Sabu. The place went crazy. Ref hit the ring, and the match started. We have Sabu versus Rhino. Alvarez gave it 2.5 stars. Crowd chanted, "You got fired." I guess which one was that at? Sabu nailed.
I believe that was at Rhino, because Rhino, I believe, had been let go or something like that.
Yeah,
I believe. I'm going off memory here, so that's take it for what it's worth.
So RVD hit the ring at one point, threw a chair at Rhino, and then drop kicked another one into his face. I want to say that's called the Van Daminator, but maybe it was just a drop kick that he did. He put Rhino on a table. Sabu came off the top of the chair, assisted leg drop for the pin. That was crazy. I hope Sabu doesn't have to spend another 91 days in the hospital now. Apparently, Sabu had been in the hospital for 91 days leading up to this.
I'll take his word for it. But I will say this. The cool thing about this match is Sabu and Rhino, both from Michigan, both were part of my early career. When I first started, training with Al Snow and wrestling, Sabu would book me on a lot of his shows, his NWA Sabu shows. Then Rhino, as I was trying to find my way, I was still working in Michigan Indies. I worked on Rhino's first ever show, his debut show for Scott D'Amore's Border City Wrestling, where I wrestled Johnny Canine and got the shit. I got the piss beat out of me.
Hey, Joel.
Hey, Jolski.
Hey, what's going on, man? Yeah, fuck me. Like, my phone's so my phone's do something for folks. Like, honestly, like, look, I would pre-invest in the show. Honestly, I'd invest in myself. You know what I mean? I'd pay it forward. But after 30 years of doing such in the wrestling business, it never works. It hasn't worked yet. And I just figure, why keep doing something when you know that the results have always been the same? So what I'd like to do is move out of the technological dark ages, and I'd like to get myself some sort of device that would charge my phone kind of on the go and not have to be tethered to the wall or whatever the case may be. Anyway, long story short, I started off the call with like less than 50% battery, and unfortunately that came back to bite me in the ass. I had to get up.
Can we get a GoFundMe?
Can we get a GoFundMe? Better yet, rather than a GoFundMe, honestly, hashtag that was extreme, hashtag pay the boys, hashtag that was extreme, hashtag pay the boys is your ticket to not having to personally and directly contribute via a GoFundMe, but it's your way of spreading the word that those in charge, the powers that be, the be-all and end-all, the alphas, the omegas, the ones with the bankrolls, the wallets, and the fat cash accounts, they are the ones that should be keeping Meanie and Shernoff and Gertner swimming in cell phone chargers.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not trying to be some sort of like a big shot here, but I have a cell phone charger just sitting right over here. So I mean, I've been taken care of, I guess. So I apologize, Joel, if that's awkward for you.
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, yeah. Thanks. Yeah, whatever. Thanks for putting that out there.
Sorry.
Yeah, I appreciate it. No, yeah, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, much needed. No, yeah, much obliged. Appreciate it. Go fuck yourself.
Hey, so Al Snow did a promo with Head, and then more classic footage aired. Raw guys arrived, and Joey Styles saw Edge and said he was glad he didn't bring his wife tonight. This is, of course, the crowd chanted Edge fucked Lita and then followed it up with he's got herpes. So I think we know what's going on. The next match, though, and this is a little, we're not going to go too deep into this, but this is tough to talk about in a couple of ways here. There's one specific thing that stood out to me, and we'll talk about it. So this is Chris Benoit versus Eddie Guerrero. Right. And forgetting the fact that Eddie is spelled EDDY the entire time. Just going to gloss over that one. There was one part where he talked about, aside from talking about how Triple H is holding everyone down and all that crap. We had a "Let's go Benoit, let's go Eddie" chant. Then they even started chanting "Fuck you Bischoff" and "Edge sucks dick." So there was a lot going on here. But there was one part that I'm trying to wade through the crap here that's being written. There's one part where he talked about, here we go. Chris and Eddie were doing mat wrestling when Eddie all of a sudden just stopped, dropped, and rolled outside. Then he walked halfway up the ramp and looked like he was trying to catch his breath. This was weird. Look, for all I know, that was a planned spot. That was him just saying, I'm going to go out there and get the crowd riled up. I'm going to play the heel because Eddie was the heel at this time. But knowing where we were headed just a few months later with Eddie Guerrero, it made me wonder if there were signs here, if he was having issues physically. We've heard a lot that he was having, Kurt Angle was mentioned on the Kurt Angle show here on Ad Free Shows. He had mentioned on one episode about when he got into an argument with Eddie because Eddie just was kind of like off a step. And I think Eddie thought that Angle was kind of, crossing him up a little bit, I maybe pushing him too hard. So that was just something that stood out to me. I don't know if you guys, 3.25 stars what he was given. Even JBL stood up and applauded afterwards. And Alvarez says, I was told that this was bad, but it was actually a hell of a Japanese-style scientific match. I don't know who the fuck told him it was bad. Right. Because I don't think, no matter what you think of Chris Benoit and no matter what condition Eddie Guerrero may have been in, I don't think Chris Benoit and Eddie Guerrero had the ability to put on a bad match. I also would not have described their match as a hell of a Japanese-style scientific match. I would have maybe said it was a classic Eddie Guerrero, Chris Benoit style match, but that's just me. Guys, any memories of this match?
No, I mean, it was just, this whole show from top to bottom was stellar. And, I mean, just looking at the show, not knowing eventually what was to come, it was a great match. It was cool to see Chris Benoit and Eddie Guerrero in the ring that adored the letters ECW. Even though it was a Vince paid product, it was as authentic as it could be. So I thought it was a great match. I was told it was bad. Who the fuck? Then stop listening to that person.
Maybe it was his friend Greg or whoever the fuck, George. I don't know.
Those who can wrestle, those who can't write.
Wow.
And apparently those who can't wrestle or write for Figure 4 Weekly. Gertner came out again. This time he tried to cut his promo in the Raw section. You are a fool. So, crowd chanted Gertner. He said he had a question for Bischoff on behalf, quote, on behalf of every ECW fan, every ECW superstar, I have to ask you, can I please have a job? Can I please be gainfully employed by you? The crowd chanted, you sold out. And then Alvarez even says, okay, that was good. If this wasn't good enough, Gertner gave him an audition tape. Bischoff turned him down, and in the greatest moment ever, this caused the crowd to boo. Eric then cut another ECW Sucks promo. Dude, I can't figure out what the fuck this guy is writing or trying to say. If I can just say here, I know I'm supposed to just be the straight-laced, but...
And you're a guy who's used to reading teleprompters.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I mean, I guess whoever writes for my show does a hell of a better job than this.
I didn't get the job. I think I got coffee spilled on me.
Yes. The audition tape. Tell us a little bit about that.
Was there a tape? I don't even really remember.
I don't remember that.
I remember Magic put together a resume for me, complete with like a BS email address on it that wasn't really my email address. It was just like, whatever. But yeah, Magic put together this prop resume. Perhaps there was a tape or a disc, or I don't remember that. But I guess the point had been gotten across that it was audition materials. I remember in trying it all out and testing it out before the show, while the doors were still closed, I remember Mr. McMahon was in the ring, and we were going over the segment. And I want to say I changed the verbiage unintentionally just because maybe I didn't realize, there was a contextual difference. But when we were going over it, I want to say what I actually said to Eric was, please hire me. And I was promptly told that the actual verbiage should be delivered instead as, please give me a job. So when showtime came, that's the way I delivered it. That's how particular they are to detail, case by case, for better or worse. I'm sure most of the time that's a good thing, but that's how particular they are to detail. So much so that unlike ECW, we got a 4:00 script, and then 2 hours later, we got a 6:00 update.
Do you think Meanie had mentioned earlier about how Vince McMahon came out there and told you guys, this is going to be Dreamer and Heyman running things and all that? Do you think this was because this was not an ECW segment? This was a WWE segment. This was you interacting with WWE contracted talent, and Vince McMahon was not going to allow anything that was not exactly scripted and by the book what he wanted.
I don't know. That could be. I don't know. I just remember that I had said, please hire me. And not that I thought that it was any better, or not that I at the moment realized that it was any different. It was just at the moment what I said after either being told what I should say or seeing it on a piece of paper. But I was corrected and told that the way that they wanted it conveyed, rather than please hire me, was please give me a job. And I don't know the exact rationale behind it. I just knew that, I was treating this as a tryout, and, if that's the, and again, not to say their way is any, better, worse, or different, but just that was
Sure.
it, and that's what they wanted. So that's the way it was delivered.
The next match, Mike Awesome versus Masato Tanaka. There's a lot in here.
I watched Vince McMahon watch this match.
Well, we're going to want to hear all about that in a minute, for sure. He talks about how he says, this match worries me. The WWE guys turn their backs on the ring. I'm thinking it might not be the worst idea if I did that myself. Tanaka came out, perhaps the first man on the show who looked exactly the same. Well, Fonzie looked exactly the same, but he's always looked 600 years old. This is Josh speaking now. Go fuck yourself, Alvarez. Styles buried Awesome. So all right, and this is, again, Josh speaking here, because this is a part that I actually recently watched the show, probably maybe a year ago or so, and something that stood out to me that was just rough. Now, we remember Mike Awesome was ECW champion when he signed with WCW.
Right.
And, of course, came back, dropped the title to Taz, who was with the WWE, and so on. And we know that story. So Joey Styles, obviously, I don't know if this was in character or this is why I want to know from you guys where things were, but he did say something that, unfortunately, as it's written here, Awesome hit a suicide dive, and Joey said, and it's a shame he didn't succeed in taking his own life. Which is, you talk about something that didn't age well.
Right.
Obviously, in a million years, Joey Styles couldn't have known what was that kind of goes without saying.
Right.
But aside from how awful it was to look at that, knowing how his life came to an end, it does beg the question, what was the relationship with Mike Awesome and the ECW talent at this show? What was that like? Did you happen to know if there was any real animosity between him and Joey Styles, or if Joey was just playing his part?
I wouldn't, if there's any animosity between Mike and Joey, I wouldn't be privy to it. I totally didn't even know that line was a thing. So when I watched the show, I either forgot or flew over my head. So yeah, I don't know. But like the boy, that day, whole day was a great day. I mean, everybody was jovial. There was no heat. There's no bickering or fighting or whatever. Everybody was like just happy to be together. So, I don't know if there's any. I don't think anybody had any real heat with Mike Awesome.
Joel, any? Do you concur with that?
Yeah, I don't think anybody had any heat with Mike Awesome, and I imagine what Joey said was storyline driven, and like Mimi said, it was such a great day, and it was a day of closure, and it was a day of water under the bridge, and
Well, Cliff Notes version, Mike Awesome beat the shit out of Tanaka, which was not anything new. He writes here, Alvarez writes, JBL was now marking out, yelling, "Do it again." Awesome got a chair, and Bradshaw clapped, "He's getting a chair," and screamed. And they were some stiff chair shots. I don't know if that's going to be edited out of the Peacock version, but JBL took his hat off out of respect for the deceased. But they were alive, Alvarez says. Awesome hit another hard chair shot off the top. JBL covered his eyes. Awesome threw a table into the ring, but it broke. The fans booed. So he threw another one into the ring. Anyway, they beat the crap out of each other. Mike Awesome then proceeded to give him a head first tope over the top onto his body on the floor. Alvarez says, I thought I had just witnessed a homicide/suicide. The ref counted the pin outside on the floor. Okay, end the pay-per-view now. That's it. It's over. But no, Awesome, who was not dead, then hit the ring and gave the ref a powerbomb so horrible that I now thought I had witnessed a double homicide. This guaranteed something. I'm not sure what. It either guaranteed the resurrection of ECW or it guaranteed that Vince will never, ever, ever, ever allow these men to do matches ever again. 4.5 stars. So he loved it, obviously. What was the match like this? What was the thought backstage with this? You said, Meanie, we're going to go to this now. You watched Vince McMahon watch this match.
Yeah.
Tell us the story.
Well, our segment was coming soon, so I just hung out in the gorilla position area, which was basically just a stage of the Hammerstein and the curtain and all that stuff. And the gorilla position was at the top of the, like as soon as you go through the curtain, you keep walking, Vince would be on the left-hand side. So I was hanging around that area, myself. I remember Lance Storm being there, a bunch of the guys. And just as the match is going on, you just hear Vince going, oh God, oh, and just like wincing and just like, oh God, as if he was watching a real life car crash. And I wish I lived in the day of, cell phone cameras, and it's like just for my own amusement, they keep it, or I wish I had a time machine where I could go back and watch, but I never seen Vince sell like that. Just like it was like a shoot cell, but I was like, oh my God.
Do you think, he must have never, he couldn't have ever seen a match between these two before.
I don't think so.
So I don't think he had, an ECW fan was going, oh my God, I can't believe they're doing what they used to do on a WWE produced show. And now you're telling us Vince McMahon, in fact, they're going, holy shit, I didn't know that this is what they did on an ECW show.
And it's funny you say that because I eventually go back to WWE after this event and spend a little time there. And a lot of the production guys flew the same flights I did. A lot of them are from the Philly area. And we specifically talked about, like me and one of the camera guys specifically talked about this event. And he's like, I've done so many events, and you're focused on what you're doing, through the viewfinder. But this is one of the few events where I took my eye away from the viewfinder for a second just to look around and take in the crowd reaction, take in the moment. And he said it was like probably one of the coolest things he's ever been involved with. So, there was that perspective. And then what I saw when I watched Vince McMahon watch Masato Tanaka and Mike Awesome. Yeah, everybody's got different perspectives, whether you're Vince or the cameraman.
Paul Heyman came out next in a suit and a trench coat.
Typical.
Alvarez says he got a Ric Flair coming back in the Carolinas reaction. Knelt down and saluted the waves of bowing fans, then wept. He said he wanted people to know he wasn't crying. His eyes were red because he was in the back smoking a joint with Van Dam. He actually thanked Todd Gordon for allowing him to be creative and book for all those crazy bastards. He thanked two dudes in the front row who had something to do with TV. Meanie, you want to let us know, or Joel, you want to let us know who those two dudes were?
I believe Ron and Charlie were in the crowd. Ron and Charlie, the guys who helped put the show together, were in the front row.
He thanked the front row for being the craziest bastards he'd ever met in his life. They chanted Paulie. He said that he was going to take the high road and just say thanks and leave, but he had something to say to the WWE guys. He said he'd waited a long time to say this to Bischoff. He said, in case he didn't notice, it wasn't Heyman with his tail between his legs going to a WCW pay-per-view. Quote, "You are an our house bitch." Crowd chanted ECW, which honestly, that was such a cool moment because no matter how you slice it and dice it, that was the truth. Yeah. This was not WWE producing a WCW pay-per-view.
No, they can do that. No.
Crowd chanted ECW. Then he added, "Wait a minute, hide your wives, it's Edge." Crowd chanted, "You screwed Matt." Paul said he knew nobody with a written promo had the balls to say this to him, but he had two words to say: Matt frickin' Hardy. Edge held up three fingers because it was three words. But still, he was passionate. And then Paul Heyman said, "I almost forgot about you," and points to JBL. Quote, "Mr. Shoot promo himself. Bounce checks. ECW went out of business. Hey, John, on a personal note, from all of us to all of you, since you want to shoot, cowboy, the only reason you were WWE champion for a year is because Triple H didn't want to work Tuesdays." JBL's reaction, faking a heart attack, was hilarious, Alvarez says. Heyman said for old time's sake, he just wanted to say one more time that this was EC F&W. Bischoff in the balcony waved goodbye to him as he left. Quote, "This is the greatest pay-per-view ever." And that brings us to the main event, folks. The Dudleys versus Tommy Dreamer and the Sandman. Anything before we say anything you guys want to add about the Paul Heyman promo?
Oh, it was off the charts. You could feel the electricity in that building could have lit up 1,000 football fields. Just, and I was on the other side of the curtain, in gorilla position, waiting for that, and just to hear it, you get instant goosebumps. You welled up. I welled up a little bit, just because, ECW never got a proper farewell. Like I said, it ended in Arkansas. Sorry, Arkansas. No offense. But here we are in Queens. Not Queens. Hammerstein Ballroom. Queens was one of our crazy buildings too. That's why I say Queens. But in the Hammerstein Ballroom, and Paulie, just giving a Paulie shoot promo. It was amazing, and probably didn't help me a little bit later. Probably got somebody a little fired up, but yeah, it was amazing.
Joel, anything to add there?
No, I mean, it was a moment in time. I mean, it was just raw, pure emotion, just church. Just the people had already gotten their money's worth on their ticket, and this was just a way of making sure that their ticket would have been a bargain at twice the price. This was exactly what you would expect, and really structurally sound, just greatly delivered. How Paul said he just had a couple of things to say, and he was going to take the high road and was thinking about just kind of saying his piece and leaving. But then it dawned on him that he had the opportunity. So just the way it was structured was kind of really smart, and perfect.
The final match, the main event here, the Dudleys versus Tommy Dreamer and Sandman. I don't want to read the whole thing, but I do want to read this part. Alvarez writes, Bubba said on Bite This that he'd been hitting the gym, and I'm starting to think that there is a fast food restaurant called The Gym because he looked like he ate dances with Dudley. I just wanted to make sure, just in case. I don't know that Bubba listens to this show. I doubt he does. Busy guy over a Busted Open. But I just thought it was important in case they cross paths again that Bubba just knows.
Yeah.
It was 9:52 when Bubba came out, and Alvarez thought to himself, this is going to be a 50-minute match? That's inconceivable. But then he remembered Sandman. So anyway, Sandman came out. Alvarez described him as, quote, profoundly intoxicated, which I don't know if that's true or not. But Sandman came out in what was one of my hands-down favorite moments of the entire show, which was the Sandman coming out to enter Sandman and pouring the beer and doing everything. All of these things. These are the things that, as a fan, you sat there and went like, are they going to let him do this? Because the WWE, it's a publicly traded company. They're overseeing everything. Are they going to let him? And there it was.
And the fact that WWE paid the royalty to use Enter Sandman for that,
yes.
at least for that show. It was on the DVD. It was on anything. But just to watch it, or just when you heard it, the opening chords.
Yeah, it was
one of the best entrances in wrestling ever.
So the match was about to start when out came the Blue World Order. To quote Brian Alvarez, Blue Meanie must have known this show was coming because he has fattened back up nearly to old Blue Meanie proportions. Okay.
All right. I've taken shits bigger than Brian Alvarez for the record. And
those shits could work a better match too.
Even when I've botched a move, it got more of a reaction than probably anything, Brian does. But then again, he's He's a wrestling expert, busy writing about pro wrestling instead of living the life and being a professional wrestler that people talk about. So I'm not Lou Thez by any means, but certainly no Brian Alvarez.
I wonder what the newsletter writers who write about Brian Alvarez matches, I wonder what they have to say about Brian Alvarez. And then going forward, I wonder what the newsletter writers who write about the newsletter writers who work the indies 3 days a year, I wonder what they write about those newsletter writers who write about the matches in Eugene, Oregon that Brian Alvarez participates in. You know, it's kind of that rabbit hole of at a certain point, like, you kind of, and then if you go 2 or 3, I'm sure 1 or 2 generations further down the rabbit hole, you wind up with somebody who's kind of just in their studio apartment, just inside these 4 walls, and just kind of, they're not publishing anything really. They're just talking with reverberating sound about the newsletter writer.
Apparently Alvarez just hacked in here.
Who writes about matches that Brian Alvarez participates in. And at a certain point, and then you stop wondering, because then you're like, now I'm wondering too much. You know what I mean? And then you start to wonder, like, what are you doing, Shernoff? What are you laughing?
No, I'm just taking it all in over here.
That's a lot. My wife's the same.
A lot.
You know, I've been paid to wrestle in Eugene, Oregon, and I've also been paid to leave Eugene, Oregon.
Oh man. So Stevie said there could be no invasion without the BWO. Quote, "We're taking over." They attacked all the guys in the ring. Out came Kid Cash. Styles got a total nonstop action line in. Well, that's it for him. Cash was immediately tossed. Balls and Axel were out next, and they killed Nova. Styles said that was probably better than having to be Simon Dean every Monday, and then said, "I'm fired, I know." It lasted a night, Nick said. Yeah.
Nova made more money as Simon Dean than Brian Alvarez ever made as a wrestler. Just for the record.
Brian Alvarez never had Batista standing on his chest holding up a shake or a fitness bar or whatever it was. And remember that when he?
Yes. No. Vaguely. It makes all the highlight. I think it's in there in the opening of WWE's programming.
The best of main event.
Bubba used a cheese grater on Dreamer, and Dreamer, quote, "gigged like a madman." So yeah, I mean, a great match. There's a lot of all caps murdered and things like that in here. But eventually, Francine of all people appeared and gave Dreamer a low blow. Who should run in for a cat fight but Beulah McGillicuddy, which was really cool to see. Dreamer puts a chair on Devon's crotch and then gave that chair a chair shot. And you must see Devon selling, he says. I mean, I've seen it because I watched ECW and WWE and Devon's career.
And
Dudley's hit what?
And Devon's crotch.
Well, who hasn't?
Devon was our Ricky Steamboat in the sense that if you hit him in the crotch, he's going to sell.
Yeah.
I'm making wrestling jokes now. You like it? You like that kind of spin on professional wrestling? I'm taking it super seriously for somebody not taking it seriously at all. It's my new thing.
Do you remember when we would do this show and be really straight-laced, and then we would go and really open up for the Zoom calls?
The Zooms are a party, man. Get to the Zoom. If you're not on those Zooms, man.
If you're not a top guy.
Competed. Dude, we've been up against live wrestling, and we've put on some unbelievable stuff on our Zooms.
Yeah, if you're not a top guy for ad-free shows, you can't be a part of those Zoom calls with us. But this is like a tiny taste of specifically Joel, of the Joel Gertner that you get on those Zoom calls. So
honestly, I give -3 fucks on those Zoom calls. I really do.
If I may, those Zoom calls are fat.
Hey, Slichter, if you're watching this, can we get a fat shirt over at ProWrestlingTees.com / that was extreme, which is not an ad.
Let's get a meanie fattened up, but PHATTENED, and it's Meanie doing like early 90s, like dressed in cross colors and like doing crisscross and like the Humpty dance from 30 years ago. Meanie, Meanie fattened up, a little urban Meanie.
Oh man, make it happen, Slichter.
Work magic.
Anyway, the match ends. Yes. Bubba lifted up Dreamer and gave him a power bomb through the table for the pin. Loud holy shit chants.
Pretty
3
sure
stars.
the table was on fire too, but they missed that detail.
Yeah, you don't want to. Oh, wait a minute. No, he had lighter fluid for the table. Yeah, but he doesn't actually add that it was ever lit on fire. Holy crap.
You think a worker would catch that detail?
Yeah.
Japanese style fire spot.
Yeah.
He must not be a pyromaniac as much as he enjoyed the double homicide of that one match. Right? Because he gave the match that had a double homicide 4.5 stars. So I guess he's not into pyro, I guess, which God bless him, whatever.
Dudley's dragged Beulah into the ring afterwards, but Sandman made the save with cane shots all around. Then he dropped to his knees, knelt over Dreamer's body, and with a look of shock and concern, glanced around the building for help, yelling, "Someone get me a beer." And who should come out to bring him a beer but Steve Austin? Austin said he'd seen Sandman drink, and he didn't need just one beer. He needed several. In addition, he said he wanted everyone in the ECW locker room to come out for a huge beer bash. What could possibly go wrong? Once all the guys hit the ring, Austin said he was all for drinking beer, but above all else, he was there to see a fight. Long story short, he invites down the WWE folks, and they come down there, apparently a fan screamed, "Let's see some ass kicking." So that was noteworthy. The fact that the table was lit on fire, we don't need to mention that. So the WWE guys came down and got in one half of the ring while ECW guys took on the other half. Crowd chanted, "We want Taz." He writes, "Oh yeah, I forgot about him." I don't think Alvarez ever watched ECW because the entire pay-per-view, all I wanted to see was Taz. I was there ready for Taz. Jonathan Coachman joins, and Joey Styles screams, "By the way, you're the worst goddamn play-by-play man I've ever heard." So Taz comes out. So we start this fight here, somewhat of a battle royal, it's described as. Taz went right after Angle and put him in the Taz mission in the aisle. Alvarez suggests that probably should have happened right in the middle of the ring. The ECW guys ended up clearing the ring, and the crowd chanted ECW. As the WWE guys were heading to the back, Austin grabbed the mic and said everyone took a beating except for one mealy-mouthed bastard in the back right now. That man, of course, would be Eric Bischoff. Foley dragged him to the ring. As Joey said, WWE guys were heading to the back to the locker room. And Alvarez says, "What the fuck did he say that for?" They bought tickets. Don't tell us they're heading back to like, shut up. Anyway, Bischoff got thrown into the ring, and the Dudleys gave him 3D. Benoit followed up with a headbutt. And Eric screamed. Ray hit the 619, which fans booed again. Austin said he wanted to conduct a post-show interview with Eric. What did he think of the night? Eric, flat on his back, staring up at the ceiling, reacted with a string of profanities. What a great heel. Unrepentant to the end, says Alvarez. So Austin gave him a stunner, and his music played, and the crowd cheered, and everyone drank beer. Well, that was a hell of a lot of fun. So that is how he ends talking about it. I do want to note before we talk about something else that happened there. After the show went off the air, the ECW wrestlers left the ring one at a time, but Dreamer stayed in the ring. He bowed to the ECW logo as the crowd chanted, "Thank you, Tommy." The Dudleys came back to the ring and hugged Dreamer, with Bubba Ray saying to Dreamer, "This is all for you." We cannot end this show without talking about the same thing that Meanie can't get through a day on social media without being asked about.
Yeah.
In that ECW WWE Battle Royal Brawl, whatever you want to call it, you had an issue with JBL. You want to give us a quick, this is what happened, and finally put a bow on this fucking thing?
Yeah, man. We had practiced this whole routine that afternoon. All guys got in the ring, same spot, same place, everything. And you just talk trash, Hey, screw you. Hey, I'm going to kick your ass. Blah, 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 blah. And, we all rehearsed this. So, that whole day, everything seemed fine. I'd seen, JBL catering and, hey, Brian, hey, John, how you doing? And I never had an inkling that there was an issue or heat. So come to the actual event where it goes to happen and, doing the same old jet, running the mouth and, hey, I could kick your ass. I'll do this, that, whatever. And I just, noticed that JBL's like staring a hole right through me. I'm just like, oh man, maybe they didn't like what I said. I don't know. And then now there's the issue when I first left WWE. I said, I pointed out that how, my time in WWE was amazing. I called JBL bully, on my way out. So the melee breaks down. Taz and Angle do their thing. The whole brawl breaks out. I think I had pre-planned something with Danny Basham to, hey man, I don't know if we're ever going to see each other again. Let's pair off, bing, bang, bang, boom, whatever. And then I'm going to find him. And then I'm pair off with somebody else. And to bring back, 2 nights before, I had the injury at Hardcore Homecoming with the 8 staples. I feel a punch right on top of those staples. I'm like, son of a bitch. I grab my hand, turn around. There's JBL. And, he starts throwing live rounds, right at my face, fistful rings, throwing punches. Does the hockey gimmick, pulls my shirt over my face, boom, boom, boom. I was like, well, I'm not just going to take this. So, the best way to stop somebody from punching the face is get in close and grab a headlock so they can't get full extension. And I started throwing my own punches, and we get separated, and I'm a bloody mess, and guys are coming up to me and looking at my face. Benoit looked at me, Smothers looked at me. Everybody's like, "What happened?" I was like, "He just shot on me." And then you watch, Sandman go over, put his cane around Sandman, and Tracy Smothers comes up and boom, 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 give him a couple shots. Bubba pulls him out, says something to him, and tells him to leave. So we go back to the back.
This was Sandman put the cane. You said Sandman put it around Sandman. Sandman put it around JBL?
Yeah, sorry. Sandman
okay. No. I just wanted to be clear, yeah.
Thank you. Sandman put the cane around JBL's, throat, and Tracy, boxed his face. So go back to the back, and Johnny is, what happened? Who told you to get color? I was like, I didn't get color. He shot him. So I give him the Cliff Notes. He goes, that's unacceptable. So, like I said, you go down the aisle a little bit. There's Gorilla on the left. They're right. JBL's like, you talked about me on the internet. I was like, well, business is a work, man. Why you shot on me? Blah blah blah. So, long story short, they go clean me up, get me stitched up. Hebner comes and finds me, gives me additional pay on top of what they just gave me. Like, they doubled my pay right there on the spot. Just like Hebner came up, put it in my pocket. And there's like a little side note to this I really haven't talked about, but it's worth talking about. Leading up to this event, I'd run shows for a company called 3PW, and through that, and an associate of mine that also helped run 3PW, I got a lot of heat with people. A lot of fences were burnt, most notably with Danny Doring and Francine. And I had ridden up to the show with Finnegan, Bob Ortiz, Francine. I want to say one other person. Francine refused to talk to me because of an issue with somebody else that I was getting residual heat for it. And, Danny wouldn't talk to me. Right. So the JBL thing happens, and, I'm a fucking mess. I go to get cleaned up and try to find the locker room where I'm sitting. I see this Danny. I was like, man, why can't we just get along, man? I love you. It's like, man, I love you too. But, this is what happened. And he goes on to tell me a bunch of stuff that I never knew happened. And then on the ride home, Francine kind of bonded a little, made up. So, everybody likes to make fun of me because JBL beat me up on live pay-per-view. And my career at that time was kind of in purgatory. I had just lost the relationship, lost the promotion I was running, and the person I was with kind of burned a lot of bridges for me. And out of this horrible incident, which was the JBL incident, I made up with two people who I love and care for. And then also it kind of brought my career back to the prominence. I became kind of not like a folk hero, but I verbalized and vented on my blog, on my Blue Meanie website at the time. So yeah, it was a great event that was kind of ruined a little bit just by this one little thing. Even Mick Foley told me he went to bat for me with Vince, and he brought this up to Vince. Mick Foley was the only person who called me after this. He called my house. And I come in and my mom goes, Brian, a Nick Foley called? It's like, oh, and I called Mick back. But yeah, it was a horrible incident, very ugly. People like to use it as a weapon against me to try and make me feel bad about myself. But truth be told, out of this horrible incident, a lot of good came of it. And, me and JBL patched up our differences, and we're friends to this day. We went into a room like men and talked it out. And he apologized. And, almost got me in the Royal Rumble in Philly here a couple years ago. So it was a shitty situation, but, I'm in a better place today. And it kind of helped me, even though it sucked.
I think the important thing is there are two takeaways from this. One, all of the fans who like to poke fun at you for JBL, taking liberties with you in the ring, maybe any of them will reach out to you to show you how they would have defended themselves in the ring with JBL. And the other one, the question that I think is on everyone's mind right now is, Joel, why didn't you call Meanie? But
to his benefit, in his defense,
dude, don't get between me and Meanie, brother. Meanie was a guest at my wedding, bro.
I danced with his grandmother.
There you go. Yeah, my grandmother was a big fan of the Meanies, and they met each other at the wedding, and really kicked it up on the dance floor.
Yeah, I was a big fan of your mom.
Thanks.
So, to put a bow on this, guys, what's your looking back at this whole thing? We all know where this went with ECW and WWECW. Are you able to look at this? Do you look at this as the final ECW show? The way that I personally do. I see it as the final ECW show, in my opinion. How do you guys remember this event?
This was definitely the last real ECW show, and people go, well, WWE financed it. Well, WWE financed ECW when the real ECW was still around anyway. They subsidized us in some ways. So yeah, this was the last real ECW show. Even though I liked part 2 as well, as much as sequels suck. The second One Night Stand was okay. You know, just to see Anthony Lewis give John Cena the finger was pretty cool. But yeah, as far as this show goes, it was perfect.
Joel.
Yeah, same here. That whole weekend was, like we said, about closure and about reunion and about seeing people that you loved and that you liked and that you respected and that you couldn't wait to work with again. Meanie got to work with Tracy Smothers again, and me and Cyrus got to live in the good old days of TNN again in the moment. And it's just always fun to be appreciated for, for what it is that you bring to the table. And it's always, when you can, make a living, just living your passion and doing something that feels like the 180-degree antithesis of work. It's just always a blast and it's always a pleasure. And yeah, I mean, that weekend for me, dude, I grew up in Brooklyn. I grew up on the WWF product first and foremost, before I, saw wrestling on cable, and before I saw it on UHF television, when I was just watching kind of, VHF over the air Saturday morning wrestling in the early to mid 80s. It was the WWF product. I had been to at least one, I think it was more like maybe 3 Raw tapings at the Hammerstein Ballroom. As a fan, I was in attendance when Jerry Lawler went up into the balcony and started cutting down Stu and Helen Hart, and show up on an episode of Raw in the balcony there. To go from that to being, directly on camera as part of talent. Just a surreal day, man. I shook hands with Vince McMahon, a billionaire. I shook hands with Chris Benoit. There's a good chance I shook both of their hands in the same hour. Just surreal. Got to work with people that I knew from before being in the business, people that I loved and respected. Got to work again with Mick Foley, who was my 1 degree of separation via that show to Kevin Bacon, because I worked with Mick Foley on One Night Stand, and Mick Foley worked with Kevin Bacon on Celebrity Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Just a ton of fun, man. Great to be under a 2-day WWF or WWE contract. Stayed with my folks in Manhattan, a mile or so away from the Hammerstein, that night after the show. So we were there at the building from 12 noon to 12 midnight. Instead of going out, instead of going to a hotel, instead of blowing off steam, I went out the back door of the Hammerstein with my bag, got in a yellow cab, and after leaving the building at 12 midnight, I was on the couch in my parents' place 15 minutes later, just trying to sit back and take it all in. So it was an amazing, amazing day.
Awesome.
And this was 4 years after ECW closed its doors, and here we are, an additional 16 years later, doing a show, not just about this event, but we do a show every month here on Ad Free Shows about ECW and what that meant to both of you, what that meant to all of the people here at Ad Free Shows who tune into this, and what it meant to the wrestling world as a whole. ECW has left a lasting mark on professional wrestling, and to me, this was the unofficial swan song. Well, that is it for all of us here on That Was Extreme. Thank you to adfreeshows.com for hosting us. Make sure to follow us on social media at That Was Extreme, and individually as well. They are at Blue Meanie BWO and at Stud Muffin Says. I am at So Says Shernoff. Don't forget to check out our podcast. Joel's is the 69-minute Eargasm. Meanie and I are over at Mind of the Meanie every Monday, and go subscribe if you'd be kind enough to So Says Shernoff, the podcast. We have some great interviews all summer long there as well. For Joel Gertner and the Blue Meanie, I'm Josh Shernoff. We will see you again as we remember more people and moments from a time that was.